Oh, it's hard to get away from. This morning we've alluded to it several times here. What a glorious spring we're enjoying this year. There's so much beauty, so much color, so much life all around us. It's palpable. You can just feel it. Personally, I'm very grateful to live in a part of the world where the seasons are pretty clearly demarcated. Although this winter was a little confusing. For the most part, we've got our set seasons and they come with some regularity. Spring is one of my favorite seasons because, of course, it's the most powerful season. I think it's most powerful because it calls to us with the miracle of abundant life. It's hard to ignore that in these beautiful, beautiful days that we're having. During spring, nature releases the divine energy that's stored within it and manifests the God-given potential for life. Not only is it an incredible miracle to witness, but if we are present to that bold and authentic display of divine life, we can be awakened to the divine life that resides within us all, 24/7. My husband Dan and I just right-sized, that's a new word for downsize, to a condo for our empty nester years. And we've got a balcony that's out of the back that overlooks a ravine. And I enjoy these beautiful spring mornings when I go out with my cup of tea and just kind of awaken to the new day and kind of find my center. And I've been watching the woods come to life. I've never ever noticed this before. But the woods come to life from the ground up. First the bushes get their trees and the small saplings get their leaves, and the small saplings get their leaves. And just now, that canopy that's up above is just starting to come to leaf. So it's been very interesting just to watch it grow from the ground up. I never realized that before. And it's been fascinating to watch this progression of life and to reflect on what it reveals about the divine life within each one of us. We are made in the image of God, and just like the planet that we inhabit, we also have an infinite, abundant source of all life within us. The good news is that that divine life that inhabits us is there whether we're present to it or not. Jesus tells his disciples in Luke 12:27 through 28, notice how the lilies grow. They don't wear themselves out with work, and they don't spin cloth. But I say to you that even Solomon in all his splendor wasn't dressed like one of these. If God dresses the grass in the field so beautifully, even though it's alive today and tomorrow it's thrown into the furnace, how much more will God do for you? God knows the needs of the lilies and makes provisions for them as part of his perfect plan. Should not we, who are made in the image of God and who are meant to express God on a much higher level than the lilies, also be able to release and manifest this divine source of all life? Jesus might have continued his lesson with the following instruction. Although the lilies appear not to work at all for a living, they do fulfill their divinely appointed function, which is to bloom as beautiful lilies. They unleash the abundant life contained within and are an expression of beauty. Let the lilies be your teacher, for you too are meant to bloom as beautiful souls. As children of God, what is your divinely appointed function? Is it not to express the abundant life of God within you? A wonderful New Thought musician, whom we've already honored with our meditation song, Eddie Watkins Jr., expresses this truth in a very powerful way. In one of his songs, he says, there's only one life. That life is God's life. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. And you have that little song running through your head, as it is through mine. Maybe it'll be with us through the morning. Nature understands this principle, and it gloriously displays that perfect life every spring, automatically, on schedule, without any apparent effort whatsoever. How can we, like nature, display that perfect life? We've already discussed the first step, which is to realize that there is only one abundant, omnipotent, eternal God life in the universe and beyond. The second step is to make connection with God life by declaring your oneness with it. That life is my life now. When we claim this oneness with God life, we become present to the divine life force within us. Unlike nature, remaining present to life is not something that is an automatic response for humans. It's something we have to create. At least that's something I've experienced in my own life. John Kabat-Zinn explains that remaining present to life is the awareness that arises through paying attention, on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. That sounds pretty simple, but actually when we start paying attention to how much we pay attention, most of the time our minds are all over the place and we are anything but present. Fortunately, there are many well-tested and effective strategies that can be used to increase our ability to remain present to life. And I would like to share some of those with you this morning. The first one that comes to mind is to take walks daily. We live in a culture of overwork, burnout, and exhaustion, in an environment where we're connected and distracted 24/7 from the things that are most important to our lives. How then can we remain present to that life force within us? Simply going for a walk can be an excellent way to calm the mind, gain a new perspective, and facilitate greater awareness. A recent study suggests that walking in nature may actually put the brain in a meditative state. The act of walking in a peaceful outdoor landscape was found to trigger involuntary attention, meaning that it holds attention while also allowing for reflection. Spending time in nature is one of the most powerful ways of reinstating a sense of wonder and a sense of ease. This past winter, I participated in the Metro Parks Winter Hikes program. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I was able to hike in 13 of our Metro Parks, usually every Saturday and every Sunday during the months of January and February, and I thought I was walking for this walking stick. I don't know, I got it in my head that I wanted one of those walking sticks and I had to earn it. My husband said when it came a little hard to get to some of those walks, well, yeah, I'll just buy you one. I said, nope, that's not what this is about. You gotta earn that. And, I was thinking I was getting regular exercise and, a chance to be out in nature, but it was so much more than that. In addition to regular exercise, I got new friends. I had an invitation to be present to the divine life within me twice a week and good weekends when there was one on Saturday and one on Sunday. I got to slow down and kind of just tune out from this hectic, busy kind of rat race kind of life that we create for ourselves. There's something about the quiet beauty and vitality of nature that puts us in touch with that divine source of life that expresses us. We need the tonic of wilderness, Thoreau wrote in Walden. At the same time that we are earnest to explore and learn all things, we require that all things be mysterious and unexplorable. The land and the sea be indefinitely wild, unsurveyed and unfathomed by us. We can never have enough of nature. Another thing that we can do that's quite simple is to turn daily tasks into mindful moments. Multitasking is the enemy of living in the present moment. Many of us spend our days in a state of divided attention and near constant multitasking, and it keeps us from being present to life. Instead, focus on one task completely for a period of time, and then take a break before continuing and moving on to another task. Increase your ability to remain present to life simply by paying a little more attention to each task as you perform it. I've discovered a wonderful meditation app. I get it on my iPhone. It's called Headspace. And my Headspace meditation teacher, who is delightful, he's from Australia, I believe, and has that wonderful Australian accent, so it kind of catches my attention as he talks. He says mindfulness starts to really get interesting when we can start to integrate it into everyday life. Remember, mindfulness just means to be present in the moment. And if you can do it sitting in a chair during meditation, then why not while out shopping, drinking a cup of tea, eating your food or holding a baby, working at the computer or chatting with a dear friend. All of these are opportunities to apply mindful awareness and to be present to life. Another thing that we can do, it's something that we always have with us. We can pay attention to our breath. Our breath is a barometer for our overall physical and mental state, and it's also the foundation of mindful awareness. Paying attention to our breath is a way of connecting our body to our soul, and it increases the awareness of that divine life within us. If you've ever meditated, then you know that focusing on your breath is the key to calming the mind. Calming the mind frees up our attention and allows us to bring our awareness into the present moment, which of course allows us to be present to life. Meditation master Thich Nhat Hanh describes the most foundational and most effective mindful practice, mindful breathing, in Shambhala's Sun. He says, so the object of your mindfulness is your breath, and you just focus on your attention on it. Breathing in, this is my in-breath. Breathing out, this is my out-breath. When you do that, the mental discourse will stop. You don't think anymore. You don't have to make an effort to stop your thinking. You just bring your attention to your in-breath and the mental discourse just stops. That is the miracle of this practice. You don't think of the past anymore. You don't think of the future. You don't think of your projects because you're focusing your attention, your awareness on your breath. Why is this so very important? Not thinking about the past, not thinking about the future, not thinking about your projects. Well, as long as the brain chatter continues, we can't be present to reality as it is. We can only be present to our judgment about how reality appears to us. This is good, that is bad, I don't like this, I really want more of that. Oh, there's something I need to fix. To be present to the miracle of the life force within us, we must be open to and accept the present moment just as it is, without any judgment. So my next technique is closely related to this, just being present to reality as it appears to us, without our judgment, without our filters, without all of that mind chatter going on. And that is to be curious. Curiosity is a powerful tool. When you're curious, what do you notice? All judgment is pushed aside. You haven't made up your mind about how reality should be. Instead, you're open to reality as it actually is. In other words, you're present to life. Any practice that invites curiosity will connect you to the divine life source within you. I teach in the math department at Columbus State Community College, and sadly, students don't always arrive on time to class. If I'm not curious, I can make up my mind in a matter of moments that any student coming late to my class just doesn't care about his education, and I'm going to, I'll bring the same thing to the plate. No, I don't care a whole lot about what you're doing. You'll have to come out and seek me out. However, when I pause to wonder, what does a student face today that made him or her late to class? Then I begin to experience gratitude that this late student made an extra effort, possibly, to get to class, despite the obstacles that he or she faced. And rather than being present to the student with frustration and annoyance and impatience, I'm present to appreciation and gratitude, which is a much more real and helpful place to meet someone who has come in to learn something from you. Another thing that we can do is to feel our emotions, all of them. After all, we are a guest house. Being present to life isn't about being happy all the time. It's about accepting the moment we are in as it is and feeling whatever we feel without trying to resist or to control it. I recently came across a very powerful poem by a Sufi mystic named Rumi. I've read this poem many, many times before. It's often been a feature in some of the mindfulness meditation retreats that I have gone to. It is a wonderful metaphor about non-resistance. The name of this poem is called The Guest House. This being human is a guest house. Every moment a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness, some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all. Even if they are proud of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, still treat each one as a guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Excessive preoccupation with happiness can actually be counterproductive, leading to an unhealthy attitude toward negative emotions and experiences. Mindful people don't try to avoid negative emotions or always look on the bright side. Rather, accepting both positive and negative emotions and letting the different feelings coexist is a key component of remaining present to life, no matter what challenges we may be facing in the moment. And finally, do not take yourself seriously. As Arianna Huffington writes in Thrive, angels fly because they take themselves lightly. A critical factor in cultivating a mindful presence to the miracle of life is refusing to get wrapped up and carried away by the constant tug of your emotions. If you can remember to laugh and keep an even keel through the ups and downs, you will be able to remain present to the life force within you. Much of our distraction is internal. We ruminate, we worry, we dwell on our problems. But those who are able to maintain a sense of humor about their own troubles are able to better cope with them. Research from the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Zurich found that the ability to laugh at oneself is associated with elevated mood, cheerful personality, and a sense of humor. Laughing also brings us into the present moment in a mindful way. Joyful laughter and meditation even look similar in the brain, according to a new study from the Loma Linda University. The meditative practice in Judaism, which is called Musar, defines certain soul traits that each one of us possess. One of those soul traits is called humility, which has a very powerful and a very interesting definition in that particular practice. The Musar defines humility as filling the right amount of space. When we take ourselves too seriously, we tend to fill too much space. It is imperative, though, that we find a balance here. Rabbi Hillel says, if I am not for myself, then who will be for me? However, if I'm only for myself, then what am I? Recently, my sister and her family were visiting. My mother was in hospice at the time and having suffered a massive stroke, and so we spent the whole day at her bedside. It was late when we decided to go to a local restaurant for dinner. When we arrived, we told the hostess that we needed a table for 8 people. The hostess told us there was a large circular booth that would seat 6 people and that they could add 2 chairs at the end. I said, great, sounded like a good idea to me. However, my adult nephew, said no, he wanted to have 2 tables next to each other. The hostess replied that we would have to wait about 25 minutes or so, and that the waitress in that section of the restaurant was already at her maximum capacity, so we could not be seated until she could properly serve us. My nephew did not back down. The booth was not acceptable to him. I looked at his dad, hoping that he would say something, but he did not. So I was left with the decision of what to do. I decided not to push the issue. In this sense, I was not filling enough space, and my nephew was filling too much space. We ended up waiting 30 minutes for the table. The waitress was overtaxed and not able to take our orders for another 20 minutes or so. There were mistakes with the orders, and some of the orders had to be sent back to the kitchen to be fixed. And we still had a very enjoyable evening together, and the food was delicious, probably because in part we were all starving. But there was no tension among all of us as we sat and visited. However, I wondered after the evening was over, how the meal might have unfolded if I'd made the decision to humbly occupy more space in that particular situation. So being present to life is the natural consequences of the things we've discussed this morning. It's a natural consequence of being aware in the present moment, attuned to our surroundings, open and curious, accepting reality as it is without judgment, and occupying the right amount of space. The simple act of paying attention to our breath connects our body to our soul and increases our awareness of that divine life within, opening us to limitless possibilities of its expression through us into our world. In the 7 spiritual laws of success, Deepak Chopra concludes with this powerful metaphor about the true purpose of life. We are travelers on a cosmic journey, stardust, swirling and dancing in eddies and whirlpools of infinity. Life is eternal, but the expressions of life are ephemeral, momentary, and transient. Gautama Buddha, the founder of Buddhism, once said, "This existence of ours is as transient as the autumn clouds. To watch the birth and death of beings is like looking at the movements of a dance. A lifetime is like a flash of lightning in the sky, rushing by like a torrent down a steep mountain." We have stopped for a moment to encounter each other, to meet, to love, to share. This is a precious moment, but it's transient. It's a little parenthesis in eternity. If we share with caring, lightheartedness, and love, we will create abundance and joy for each other. And then this moment will have been worthwhile. So I leave you with this affirmation. This is a precious moment, and I make it worthwhile. Say that with me. This is a precious moment, and I make it worthwhile. Let's close in a word of prayer. Mother, Father, God, divine source of life that expresses all, we acknowledge your presence in us, through us and all around us. We live, we move, we have our being in you. May we realize every moment allotted to us is truly precious. May we make every moment worthwhile. And so it is. Amen.